There's a new decoration. Okay. This is the continuation of a series I started in March where I discuss very specific books that I read each month that aren't novels because I have a separate wrap-up for that coming up. So last month, or no, in March, it was poetry I read in March. And now it's manga I read in April. And it kind of doubles as an April wrap-up because I barely read any books in April, so just consider this what I read in April. And each of them I'm experiencing for the first time, so I'm here to give you my first impressions. The first manga that I read in April is My Dad's Secret Ambition by Kuiji Kumeta. I do not expect to say any of these names right, but that was my attempt. So, My Dad's Secret Ambition, I read it for one reason and also another reason, so that's two. 1 + 1 is 2. The first reason is because the art style is very unique and very intriguing. I like it. And the other reason is because when I first saw it, it was being promoted because it's getting a anime adaptation which is currently airing, and I'm watching that as well. So before it started airing, I read the first volume of the manga and then I went on to watch the show. So what is the story about? The premise at first got me a little bit nervous, but here it is. It is about a dad who is a manga artist of a very violent, inappropriate series aimed at adults, and he wants to hide that from his very young, innocent daughter because he's scared of what she'll think of him. So he pretends, and he just goes to great lengths to make her think that he's a businessman. There are ways that could go wrong, that premise, because just what tends to happen is any daughter-dad relationship can get weird sometimes, but that's not a generalization I want to make. So I went in and it was not at all what I thought it could have been in the worst case scenario. It was very cute and wholesome because the story has very little to do with the contents of the manga and more to do with the relationship between the dad and the daughter, which is very, very sweet and also hilarious because this is a comedy series. The art is so unique. I know that this manga artist has done other things before. He did stuff that made him famous that I haven't seen before, so this is kind of a trademark thing for him, this unique art style, but I really appreciated that. This is the first thing I ever experienced by him, and the story is just so sweet and charming. The dad is hilarious, the daughter is adorable, and there are tons of side characters that come along to annoy him, deter him in his quest for this ridiculous secret he's keeping. And another factor that I found to be really refreshing and interesting was that he's a single dad, and it kind of just hints about stuff like how he's still grieving that his wife is gone, and how the daughter is, he's worrying about how the daughter's gonna do with just one parent in the household to take care of her, and that was just really touching and real. I don't know, this might be news to you, but the person who made this manga is a manga artist. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I also found this series to be educational. This is about a rising, struggling manga artist, the dad, from the perspective of an actual manga artist who had to work hard to be where he is today. Because the manga industry in Japan is so interesting and so difficult, because you do so much work with oftentimes little reward, and there are different ways that society views you. A lot of people idolize manga artists and a lot of people look down on them, often depending on your success and on the content that you make. I'm giving the anime, which is currently airing and I'm currently watching, an 8, I think an 8 out of 10, so I'll reflect that in giving this manga volume 1 a 4 out of 5. I wouldn't give it a 5 out of 5 because it's not perfect, but it makes me laugh out loud, which is what you want in a comedy, and it makes me attached to the characters, which is what you want in a character drama, and it's a little bit of both. It balances both really well. Dragon Ball by Akira Toriyama. Yes, I have not watched Dragon Ball. I have not read Dragon Ball. I have not experienced that franchise in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, I know. I miss that era of, you know, kids growing up watching Dragon Ball while everybody was watching, I don't know, Dragon Ball Z on the television. I was watching Fruits Basket or Avatar: The Last Airbender, so that just went right over me. But now that I've read this volume 1, it is not at all what I expected. In the last manga I just talked about, I didn't really say anything I disliked because there isn't anything I disliked, but there are things I disliked with Dragon Ball, and it's mostly the potty humor and the adult humor, which was, again, not at all what I was expecting. You guys grew up watching this because there's a lot of stuff in there that my parents would kind of raise their eyebrows at. Maybe it's because of how old this is and that's just a different era, and maybe that's what makes it unique because of the humor, but I prefer not to have that kind of stuff in the stuff I read and watch. Potty humor isn't my thing. A little bit here and there, whatever, but it's kind of excessive, and I don't know. I don't think it's problematic at all because, again, this is an older manga where that wasn't really a problem, so I'm not gonna go and get like angry or offended at it, but I don't know, it's a little bit annoying. Things that I do like, obviously, is the world. It's so interesting, and the humor that isn't potty humor is pretty funny. I guess I need to tell you what the story's about, but I mean, a lot of people know already. So it's about this world where there are Dragon Balls, which are these little orb things that if you gather them all together in one place, then a dragon will appear and grant your wildest wish. It kind of reminds me of One Piece with how there are these mystical creatures and very detailed landscapes and different societies in it. By the way that it reminds me of One Piece, that's the main thing that I like about it, with how the world is so detailed out and just put together, and it feels like you're exploring it with the main characters. So we'll see where it goes from here. I really doubt I'm going to be watching the show, but I will continue to read the manga. And as for the score, I would say a 3 out of 5 for now, but it's kind of pushing on a 4 out of 5. It's just the things that I dislike about it kind of keep coming up. After that, in April, I read Ruby, the official manga, and this is an ARC, but Ruby, the official manga by Bunta Kinami. So there are more than one manga editions of Ruby, unsurprisingly, but this one releases in summer, I think, and I got it off of NetGalley. But yeah, here's some news. I am a very, very recent Ruby fan. Seeing this on NetGalley is actually what prompted me to finally watch the web series. And yeah, it's not an anime. It is an American-made web series that is entirely in English, entirely made by Americans, that is inspired by anime, at least in its art style. I'm not sure how far the plot goes with being inspired by anime. It translates very well into manga form because the art styles, because the character designs are inspired by anime. So that's the main thing I liked about this manga, is that the art style, how pretty it is to look at. I read the manga after I consumed season 1 of Ruby, so that's an important factor into how much I enjoyed this. I saw this manga on NetGalley, I didn't read it, I was like, okay, whatever, I gotta watch the series, come on. So I went to watch it, and then I decided I loved it, even though, okay, I'll talk about this some other time. I'll talk about the actual series on my channel some other time. So we're not gonna get into that, we're only talking about the manga. Knowing what was gonna happen, obviously, usually would take away from my enjoyment, but many things were changed in this manga, even about like characters and about the order of events. I found myself a little bit disappointed, unrealistically, not to see action scenes animated. Yeah, it's weird. There are just a few frames dedicated to something that took maybe 30 seconds or even 2 minutes in the actual show. And even a few things I liked about characters didn't seem to be present, like about the main character Ruby being this quirky, weird girl, which sounds annoying, but it actually isn't. It's endearing. And in the manga, she's more of a basic shonen protagonist. I'm not even saying the manga is bad, I just prefer the original, which is an unfair assessment. So I'm gonna say I recommend the Ruby manga, especially to those who haven't watched the show and maybe can't bear the way it looks. If you're not into the actual series, I recommend reading the manga because some things are changed and it is really pretty to look at. So I give Ruby a 3 out of 5 stars. The final manga that I read in April, which carried over a little bit into this month, is Black Clover by Yuki Tabata. I was one of the many people who watched the anime adaptation when it first aired. I checked out the first few episodes, and I stuck around for 6 or 7, and then I just gave up. And I think there were a few reasons. There was also that the start was very weird and very slow, and just the pacing was weird, that's all. And so I just dropped it and decided it wasn't worth my time and forgot about it until recently when an AniTuber I like, Be More Brass, made a video about Black Clover and how it's actually good now. Like, it had a rough start, but it's good. And he also recommended that if you didn't get into the anime, that you actually just read the manga, because a lot of things that someone would dislike in the initial stage of the anime are not present in the manga. I'm shonen trash. I will read anything that is shonen. So it is surprising that I would drop it, even if it was annoying in the beginning stages. And it's not at all surprising that I would now love it after coming back to it a second time. Black Clover it takes place in this world where there are magicians, basically these kind of bodyguards, heroes that train their abilities to take care of the kingdom and serve the king. Whoever gets to be the magic pirate king or the Hokage or whatever, I can't even remember, gets power or whatever. The thing is, it sounds so generic. It sounds like something you've seen before. It sounds like a mashup of a different shonen, and I guess that's part of the reason I walked away from it. But coming back to it and giving it a second chance, it reminds me of early One Piece. Again, it reminds me of One Piece with how you weren't yet invested in the characters exactly, but you were invested in the world, and you were interested to see where these people with big ambitions would go. Asta is a boy. He's an orphan and he has zero magic power whatsoever, and that makes him an underdog. That makes him the underdog of the story. He's very loud, very outgoing, and very confident despite not having any abilities. And although people drag him down, he trains physically even if he can't train with his abilities, and he still applies to Magic Academy or whatever it is with his very overpowered brother. The thing I found interesting was the contrast between Asta and this other brother, but also their dynamic with how they're rivals and they do care for each other, so the brother is not just a jerk. The plot is going at a slower pace, and I know that it hasn't exactly exploded yet, but I trust the opinions of people who say I should keep going, and I think that the main character, now that I don't have to listen to him, seems to have a lot of depth, and that the side characters are very charming and interesting as well. I give the beginning of Black Clover a very cautious 3.5. I've heard it gets better, and I believe that it gets better. I don't think I'll be revisiting the anime, but I am giving the manga a chance. Thanks for watching me discuss the different manga volumes I read in April. I'll be continuing this. I don't know if next month I'll do manga or poetry or something else, but as I said, I won't be talking about novels. There's an actual wrap-up for that that'll come around June or something. But yeah, thank you for watching me talk about these books, and I'll see you next week.